Look at this black woman. No education, no beauty, just hands made for scrubbing. That's why people like her end up on their knees." Gregory Anderson said it in Mandarin, laughing as he descended the marble staircase with his girlfriend, Victoria Sterling, wrapped around his arm. They'd just come from upstairs, from his wife's bedroom, and now they were heading out for lunch while the help cleaned up. Victoria replied in the same language, her voice dripping with contempt. "Compared to me, she looks like trash. No wonder she's only qualified to clean toilets and mop floors." Anderson's $1,000 shoe kicked Maya Henderson's bucket. Water exploded everywhere, soaking her knees, her dark skin, her faded uniform. Victoria leaned into him, still speaking Mandarin. "Your wife pays this stupid maid to clean the bedroom where we meet every Thursday. Does she suspect anything?" Anderson smirked. "She's too ignorant to understand Chinese. We're completely safe talking right in front of her." Maya stayed frozen on her knees, silent, obedient, but her hands, just for a second, had stopped moving. 5:30 a.m. The alarm never changed. Maya Henderson's hands moved through the same routine they'd performed for 3 years. Keys in the service entrance, shoes off at the door, white gloves on. Gregory Anderson's Palo Alto mansion didn't wake up for another 3 hours, but the invisible work started before dawn. The security guard, a different one every few months, none ever learning her name, barely glanced up from his phone as she passed. She was part of the architecture, a fixture, expected but unnoticed. She moved through rooms that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Her cart wheels whispered across marble imported from Italy. Her cloth circled over furniture handcrafted in Denmark, every surface perfect, every corner spotless. Maya knew things about the Anderson family that their closest friends didn't. She knew Gregory took his coffee black with exactly 2 ice cubes at 8:15 a.m. She knew his wife Caroline cried in the bathtub on Tuesdays after her therapy appointments. She knew their daughter had stopped coming home from college because the silence in this house felt like drowning. She knew which rooms held secrets. The master bedroom where lipstick stains appeared on Thursdays, always wiped clean by Maya before Caroline returned from her charity meetings. The office where bank statements lay scattered, showing wire transfers to Sterling Holdings LLC. The guest bathroom where unfamiliar perfume lingered in the air. Maya documented nothing, said nothing. Her job was to erase evidence, not collect it. At least that's what they thought. She paused at the Andersons' Chinese art collection, a wall of artifacts Gregory had acquired during his decade in Beijing, Ming Dynasty vases, Qing scrolls, a jade Buddha that was labeled Tang Dynasty but was actually Song. Maya had noticed the error 2 years ago. Her father, a UN interpreter who'd spent 30 years in East Asia, had taught her the difference. She'd never corrected the label, because invisible people don't have knowledge. They don't have education. They certainly don't speak Mandarin. Maya adjusted the vase 1 centimeter to the left and moved on. Gregory Anderson was 46 years old and worth $4.3 billion. The money came from tech, a cloud infrastructure company he'd built from a Stanford dorm room and grown in Beijing's explosive market. 10 years in China had made him fluent in Mandarin, ruthless in business, and comfortable with a specific kind of power, the kind that came from knowing you were smarter than everyone else in the room. His wife, Caroline Anderson, came from different wealth, old California money, the kind with trust funds and family foundations and last names on hospital wings. She'd married Gregory when he was still hungry, back when his company was just an idea and a pitch deck. Now, 20 years later, she managed charitable donations while he managed empires. They appeared together in Architectural Digest, Forbes, Town and Country, the perfect Silicon Valley power couple. Their Palo Alto mansion sat on 3 acres of manicured perfection, 12,000 square feet, 7 bedrooms, a wine cellar worth more than most houses. Staff quarters that Maya and 2 other housekeepers rotated through, keeping the machine of wealth running smoothly. Gregory split his time between board meetings, investor calls, and the private office where he still coded occasionally, not because he needed to, but because power was a drug and control was the high. Caroline filled her calendar with galas, fundraisers, and committees. She wore designer labels and practiced smiles. She'd learned long ago that being a billionaire's wife meant performing grace while swallowing loneliness. Neither of them knew that their housekeeper understood every word of the conversations they thought were private. Neither of them knew that invisibility was the most dangerous kind of camouflage. The photograph in Maya's locker was faded at the edges, a younger version of herself standing between diplomats at a UN reception in Geneva. She was wearing a Georgetown University name tag, her hair was styled, her suit was pressed, her smile carried ambition. That was 16 years ago, before her husband's car accident, before the medical bills that consumed their savings, before single motherhood and student loan debt, and the slow realization that a linguistics degree couldn't compete with grief and poverty. Maya Henderson, Georgetown class of 2009, graduated summa cum laude, fluent in Mandarin, French, and Spanish, had traded her career for survival. Her daughter needed college tuition. Her mother needed assisted living. The bills didn't care about potential, so she disappeared into the invisible workforce. Housekeeping paid cash. No one asked questions. No one checked credentials. Her brown skin and worn clothes told a story people already believed, so she let them believe it. She moved through the Anderson mansion like a ghost, but her mind stayed sharp. While she dusted Gregory's Chinese artifacts, she translated the calligraphy he couldn't read. While she cleaned his office, she noticed the financial documents left carelessly open. While she polished Caroline's bathroom mirror, she observed the prescription bottles multiplying. Anxiety, depression, sleeping pills. She saw everything. The affair wasn't a surprise. Rich men always had affairs. But the carelessness was new. Gregory and Victoria speaking Mandarin right in front of her, discussing bank transfers and bedroom schedules like she was deaf and blind. 3 years of silence had made them comfortable. That was going to be expensive. Maya closed her locker and returned to work. Victoria Sterling arrived at noon in a silver Mercedes that cost more than Maya earned in 5 years. She didn't knock. She had a key. Maya was polishing the dining room table when she heard the door open, heard the click of designer heels across marble, heard Gregory's voice call out in Mandarin from his office, "Finally! I've been waiting!" Victoria Sterling was 34, blonde, and viciously beautiful in the way that required personal trainers and monthly aesthetic treatments. She'd met Gregory in Beijing 8 years ago when she was managing international partnerships for a venture capital firm. Now she ran her own consulting company, Sterling Holdings, funded primarily by one very generous client. She moved through the Anderson house like she owned it, because in a way she did. Thursday afternoons belonged to her. Caroline's charity meetings ran long on Thursdays. The house was empty except for the help, and the help didn't count. Maya kept polishing the table as Victoria passed, her Chanel bag swinging, her perfume sharp and expensive. Victoria didn't acknowledge her, didn't nod, didn't slow down, just walked straight to Gregory's office and closed the door. 20 minutes later, they emerged. Gregory's shirt was wrinkled. Victoria's lipstick was smudged. They were laughing about something, switching between English and Mandarin with the easy fluency of people who'd spent years navigating international business deals and affairs. "The conference room needs attention," Gregory said to Maya in English, his tone flat. "Mrs. Anderson is hosting a dinner party on Saturday. Everything should be spotless." "Yes, sir," Maya replied, her eyes on the table. Victoria draped herself across the white leather sofa, pulling out her phone. She said something in Mandarin to Gregory, something about being hungry, about wanting to go to that new restaurant in Menlo Park, about having 2 hours before Caroline returned. Gregory laughed and sat beside her, his hand on her knee. Right there, in his wife's living room, on his wife's furniture, while his wife's employee cleaned 3 feet away. Maya's cloth moved in slow, steady circles across mahogany. Her breathing stayed even, but her mind was recording everything. "Caroline leaves for the Paris Gala next Thursday," Gregory said in Mandarin, his voice casual as he scrolled through his phone. "Her flight is at 6 p.m. We'll have 4 days completely alone." Victoria smiled, leaning into him. 4 days? Have you finished transferring the Malibu property deed yet?" Maya was on a ladder, dusting the chandelier above them, her hands steady, her face blank. "My attorney is finalizing the paperwork," Gregory replied in the same language. "The beach house will be under Sterling Holdings by next week. Technically a business asset. Caroline will never know." Victoria laughed, sharp and bright. "Your wife pays this ignorant black maid to clean while you're stealing from her." Does she understand we're discussing how we're robbing her blind? Gregory glanced up at Maya, his expression amused. She doesn't speak Chinese. I've been insulting her for 3 years and she just smiles. Watch this. He raised his voice slightly, still in Mandarin. This black woman is so stupid she probably thinks we're discussing the weather. We could plan Caroline's funeral right here and she'd just keep dusting. Victoria giggled. God, it's so freeing to speak Chinese around the help. We should do this more often. Maya's cloth moved across the crystal chandelier in careful circles. Her face showed nothing, no recognition, no anger, just the practiced invisibility of someone who'd learned to disappear. But her hand, just for a second, had gripped the cloth a little too tight. Maya climbed down the ladder slowly, each step deliberate, controlled. She folded her cloth, placed it in her cleaning caddy, adjusted the supplies with careful precision. Then she turned to face Gregory Anderson and Victoria Sterling, and spoke. "Sir," she said quietly in perfect Mandarin, the refined dialect of Beijing diplomats, every tone precise. "You used the wrong grammatical particle. When transferring property ownership, the correct verb is gay, not way. You said way, which means doing a favor, not executing a legal transaction." The room went silent. Gregory's phone slipped from his hand, clattering against the marble floor. Victoria's laughter died in her throat. 3 seconds of absolute crystalline silence. Maya picked up her caddy, adjusted the handles, started walking toward the service hallway. "Also," she added without turning around, still speaking Mandarin, "the Paris Gala is only 3 days, not 4. Mrs. Anderson returns Sunday evening, not Monday. You might want to adjust your plans accordingly." She disappeared around the corner. Behind her, she heard Victoria's panicked whisper in Mandarin. "Did she just—" Gregory couldn't speak, just stared at the empty hallway where his invisible housekeeper had vanished, the housekeeper who apparently understood every word they'd said, every conversation, every secret, for 3 years. Victoria grabbed his arm. "How long has she known?" Gregory Anderson, billionaire, Stanford graduate, master of the universe, realized he'd just made a $4 billion mistake. He'd underestimated the help. Caroline Anderson returned home early that afternoon, her heels clicking across marble with the sharp precision of old money meeting new anxiety. Maya was arranging fresh flowers in the foyer when Caroline stopped beside her. "Maya," Caroline said carefully, "was there a visitor today?" Maya's hands didn't pause. White lilies, perfect spacing. "Mr. Anderson had a business associate, ma'am. Miss Sterling." "Victoria." Caroline's voice went flat. "She was here? In my home?" "Yes, ma'am. How long?" Maya positioned the last lily. "Approximately 2 hours." Caroline was 45 years old and had been a billionaire's wife long enough to recognize the architecture of betrayal. The late-night phone calls Gregory blamed on Beijing time zones. The credit card charges to jewelry stores she'd never visited, the way her husband flinched when she touched him. She'd suspected for months, but suspicion and proof were different currencies. "Maya," Caroline said slowly, "you've worked here for 3 years. You see everything that happens in this house." "I clean, ma'am. But you see—" Maya met her eyes for just a moment. Long enough for Caroline to glimpse something sharp and knowing. Then she looked away. "I'm paid to clean, not to see." Caroline studied her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in 3 years, saw the intelligence in her posture, the way she held herself with careful dignity despite the worn uniform, the calm in her voice that suggested education buried under necessity. "If you ever wanted to tell me something," Caroline said quietly, "anything you've observed, I would listen." Maya's hands trembled just slightly as she adjusted a lily. "Mrs. Anderson, I have a daughter in college. I need this job." "I understand. Do you?" Maya's voice stayed soft, but something in it had shifted. "Because from where I stand, ma'am, the truth costs more than people who have money can imagine." Caroline went still. Maya picked up the empty vase. "The flowers are finished. Will there be anything else?" "No, thank you, Maya." Maya walked toward the service hallway, her spine straight, her steps measured. Caroline watched her disappear and for the first time wondered, what else has she seen? What else does she know? And more importantly, why hasn't she told me? In the kitchen, alone, Maya leaned against the counter and exhaled slowly. The question wasn't whether to tell Caroline the truth. The question was when, and how, and at what price. Victoria Sterling became bolder after Maya's revelation, not because she wasn't worried, she was, but because Gregory had convinced her that Maya was just a housekeeper, that even if she understood Mandarin, she had no proof, no credibility, no power. "Who's going to believe her over us?" Gregory had said on the phone that night, his voice tight with forced confidence. A black cleaning woman against a billionaire and a Harvard MBA? Caroline would fire her on the spot for making accusations. So Victoria kept coming, kept leaving her signature in expensive places. A lipstick-stained wine glass left carelessly on the nightstand, a silk scarf forgotten on Gregory's office chair, a thank you note in the guest bedroom that read "for Thursday" in Victoria's distinctive handwriting. Maya cleaned it all, but now she documented it. Photos on her phone, timestamps, a small notebook hidden in her locker with dates and details. Evidence. One Thursday afternoon, while Maya was changing the master bedroom sheets, she heard them in the bathroom, the shower running, Victoria's laughter echoing off marble, Gregory saying something in Mandarin about next steps and timing. Maya stripped the bed methodically, found Victoria's diamond earring tangled in the pillowcase, set it on the dresser where Caroline would find it if Maya positioned it correctly. She was folding the fitted sheet when she heard Victoria's voice clearly through the half-open bathroom door. "When are you telling her?" Victoria asked in Mandarin. "After the Paris trip," Gregory replied. "Once she's gone, I'll have my attorney serve the divorce papers. The prenup is ironclad. She gets the Tahoe house and a settlement, but everything else stays with me." "And the black maid? What about her?" "She knows, Gregory. She understands everything. So we fire her, give her severance. She'll disappear." Maya's hands stilled on the sheet. Victoria's voice went quiet. "What if she doesn't?" "Then we make sure she has bigger problems to worry about than our relationship." The shower turned off. Maya finished folding the sheet, placed it on the bed, and walked out of the room before they emerged. In the hallway, she stood very still, her phone in her pocket, her mind calculating. They were planning to silence her, which meant she needed to speak first, but carefully, strategically, with proof they couldn't deny. Because invisible people who suddenly became visible had a habit of disappearing permanently. That night, in the tiny apartment she shared with her daughter's empty bedroom, Maya sat at her kitchen table and stared at her phone. 83 photos, 14 pages of time-stamped notes, 3 years of invisible observation compressed into evidence that could destroy a billionaire's marriage and her own life. Her daughter, Jasmine, was a junior at Howard University, pre-med, Dean's List. Everything Maya's own abandoned career should have been. The tuition payment was due in 6 weeks. Maya's savings account had $800. She couldn't afford to lose this job. But she also couldn't afford to stay silent while Gregory Anderson plotted to give her bigger problems. Maya thought about her own mother, who'd stayed silent through her father's affairs until the lies suffocated their family. Thought about the years of watching her mother shrink, smile, pretend not to know. Invisibility was inherited. Silence was taught. But so was survival. Maya opened her phone's voice memo app. The next day was Thursday. Victoria would come. They would talk. And Maya would be there, cleaning, ignored, recording. Because powerful people always made the same mistake. They thought invisible meant powerless. They were about to learn the difference. Friday morning, Caroline called Maya into the study. "I'm promoting you," Caroline said without preamble. "Household manager. You'll oversee the other staff, manage vendor relationships, coordinate events, $45,000 a year plus benefits." Maya stood very still. "Mrs. Anderson, You're overqualified for cleaning work. I've watched you. You're educated, organized, trustworthy." Caroline's voice softened. "I need people I can trust, Maya, especially now." The subtext hung between them like smoke. "Thank you, ma'am," Maya said quietly. "I accept." What she didn't say, this promotion wasn't generosity. It was strategy. Caroline was positioning her pieces for a war she suspected was coming. What Maya also didn't know, Gregory had similar strategies. That afternoon, Gregory called Maya into his office. His smile was friendly. His eyes were calculating. "My wife tells me you're being promoted." Congratulations. Thank you, sir. You'll have access to more of the house now. More responsibility. He paused. More accountability. Maya said nothing. I'll need you to start logging your hours more carefully, documenting your work. We're implementing new household management software. You'll track every task, every purchase, every decision. He pulled out a tablet. Starting today. Maya understood immediately. Every movement monitored, every action documented. If anything went wrong, missing items, discrepancies, accusations, there would be a digital trail leading straight to her. Gregory was building a case before she could. Of course, sir, Maya said. I'll set it up today. She left his office with the tablet in her hands and a target on her back. Caroline had promoted her to soldier. Gregory had marked her as enemy. And Victoria Sterling was coming back on Thursday. Maya walked to the service closet, closed the door, and exhaled slowly. She was standing in the center of a collapsing bridge, and both sides were burning. Time to jump. The dinner party was Caroline's idea. 12 guests, mostly Stanford alumni and venture capital partners. Important people, influential people, people who spoke Mandarin. Mr. Benjamin Phillips arrived at 7:30, fresh from Shanghai, speaking rapid Mandarin to his associate about factory delays and supply chain issues. The professional translator Caroline had hired was stuck in San Francisco traffic, texting apologies about the Bay Bridge backup. Caroline looked panicked. The evening was off script. Does anyone speak Chinese? She asked the room. Silence. Then Maya stepped forward from her position by the bar. I can help until the translator arrives, Mrs. Anderson. Every head turned. Gregory's wine glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Maya kept her voice calm, professional. I'm conversationally fluent. If it's just business discussion, I can bridge the gap. Mr. Phillips looked relieved. That would be wonderful. We're on a tight timeline tonight. For the next 20 minutes, Maya interpreted seamlessly. Technical terminology, business idioms, cultural context. Her Mandarin was flawless. University-level, diplomatic quality, the kind that came from years of study, not apps. Gregory watched from across the room, his jaw tight, his mind recalculating every conversation he'd ever had in front of her. Then came the shift. Mr. Phillips made small talk in Mandarin, smiling at Gregory. How was your lovely wife? I heard she does remarkable work with her foundation. Maya turned to Gregory, her face composed, and translated in English. He asks when your wife leaves for Paris. Gregory's face went white. Mr. Phillips looked confused. No, I asked how she... My apologies. Maya interrupted smoothly in Mandarin, addressing Phillips. I meant to say he asked how she is. Easy words to confuse in translation, similar sounds. But her eyes, for just a second, locked onto Gregory's. She'd done it deliberately. The message was clear. I remember Thursday. I remember Paris. I remember everything. After the guests left, Maya was collecting empty glasses from the living room when she noticed Victoria's silk scarf draped over the back of Gregory's office chair. She picked it up, folded it carefully, and placed it on his desk. Then she wrote a small note in Chinese characters on his business stationery. Zhou Si Kuai Dao Liao. Thursday is coming. She left it beside the scarf. Late that night, Gregory called Victoria in a panic. She knows, he said without greeting. The housekeeper. She's been listening to us for years. She just proved it tonight in front of investors. She translated business Mandarin like a professional. So fire her. Caroline promoted her yesterday. If I fire her now, it looks suspicious. Victoria's voice went cold. Then we deal with her differently. Meaning? Meaning people who threaten us need to learn there are consequences. Make her the problem, Gregory, before she makes us the problem. Gregory stared at the Chinese note on his desk. Thursday is coming. He picked up his phone and started making calls. Monday morning, Gregory cornered Maya in the kitchen. He switched to Mandarin, his voice low and dangerous. Understanding language doesn't mean understanding consequences. Maya continued loading the dishwasher. I understand both, sir. Do you? Because I think you're confused about your position here. You work for us. You serve us. And people in service who forget their place tend to find themselves without employment, without references, without options. Maya closed the dishwasher and turned to face him. Her voice stayed calm. Is there something specific you'd like cleaned today, Mr. Anderson? Gregory leaned closer. Everything you think you know, everything you think you heard, keep it to yourself. or I promise you your daughter's tuition will be the least of your problems." He walked out. Maya stood alone in the kitchen, her hands shaking. He'd threatened Jasmine. That changed everything. Victoria Sterling sat across from Gregory in his downtown office, her legs crossed, her expression sharp. "Fire her today," she said flatly. "The black maid. She's a liability. I told you, Caroline just promoted her. If I override that, it raises questions. Then make her fire herself." Victoria leaned forward. "Frame her for something. Theft, misconduct. Make it impossible for Caroline to keep her." Gregory ran his hand through his hair. "That's risky. Riskier than letting her walk around knowing everything about us?" "Gregory, she heard us discussing the property transfer. She knows about Paris. She probably knows about the prenup loopholes my attorney found. She's a walking deposition." "She has no proof." "She has ears, and apparently a Georgetown education." Victoria's voice turned icy. "You told me she was just a maid. You said we were safe. We are safe. Then prove it. Get rid of her." That evening, Gregory and Victoria executed the plan. Victoria accidentally left her diamond tennis bracelet, worth $38,000, on the bathroom counter after one of her Thursday visits. She texted Gregory, "Can't find my bracelet. Think I left it there." Gregory replied, "I'll check." He found the bracelet exactly where Victoria had positioned it. Then he carefully placed it in Maya's locker in the staff room, buried under her spare uniform. The next morning, he called Caroline into his office. "I need to discuss something about Maya," he said, his voice heavy with false regret. "Victoria lost an expensive bracelet after her last visit. I searched everywhere, found it in Maya's locker." Caroline went very still. "You're accusing Maya of theft?" "I'm telling you what I found. Did you ask her about it?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. She's your employee now." Caroline stared at him. "You want me to fire her? I want you to handle this appropriately. If jewelry is going missing, Victoria was in my home? Again?" Gregory faltered. "She stopped by for a business meeting. A business meeting that required her to remove her jewelry?" "Caroline, get out!" Her voice went cold. "I'll handle Maya, you handle your business associate." Gregory left. Caroline sat alone in his office, staring at the wall. She didn't believe the theft accusation, but she also couldn't prove it false. And Gregory knew that. He was forcing her hand, forcing her to choose between her suspicions and evidence, between loyalty and proof. Caroline picked up her phone and called Maya to the study. This was going to be the hardest conversation of her life because she suspected her husband was lying, but the bracelet was real. And right now, evidence beat instinct. Caroline Anderson stood behind her desk when Maya entered. The other household staff were gathered, 2 other housekeepers, the groundskeeper, the cook. Witnesses. The diamond bracelet sat on the desk between them like a coiled snake. "Maya," Caroline said, her voice careful, controlled, "this bracelet belongs to Victoria Sterling. It was found in your locker." Maya looked at the bracelet, then at Caroline. "I've never seen it before." "It was in your personal locker. Your locked locker. Then someone put it there. Who would do that?" The question hung in the air. Maya could answer it. Could say, "Your husband, who's been sleeping with Victoria for 8 months, who discussed framing me in Mandarin last Thursday, who threatened my daughter on Monday." But saying that without proof meant instant dismissal and permanent unemployment. "I don't know, ma'am," Maya said quietly. "But I didn't take it." Gregory appeared in the doorway, his expression concerned. "Caroline, I think we should call the police. This is a serious matter." Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Jasmine. "Mom, just got accepted to the summer medical internship in Boston. They're covering housing. Call me." Her daughter's future right there, glowing on her screen. If police came, if charges were filed, if this became public. Everything Maya had sacrificed for, Jasmine's education, her opportunities, her escape from the cycle of poverty, would collapse. "Mrs. Anderson," Maya said, her voice steady despite the earthquake inside her chest. "I have a daughter in college. I need this job." "I would never jeopardize that by stealing." Caroline's eyes softened just slightly. "Then explain the bracelet." "I can't. But I can show you my phone records, my bank statements, anything you need. I have nothing to hide." Gregory stepped forward. "Caroline, this is inappropriate. She's obviously lying. We should—" "I'll handle this," Caroline interrupted sharply. "Everyone leave, now." The staff filed out. Gregory hesitated, then followed. Caroline and Maya stood alone. "Tell me the truth," Caroline whispered. "Not about the bracelet, about what's happening in my house, about what you've seen." Maya looked at this woman, privileged, betrayed, desperate for honesty in a mansion built on lies, and made a decision. "Mrs. Anderson, I need to show you something, but not here, and not now. Can you meet me somewhere private tomorrow?" Caroline studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Maya sat alone in the staff room at midnight, long after everyone had gone home. Her hands shook as she reached into her locker, past the false bottom she'd installed 3 months ago, and pulled out a small digital recorder, the one she'd been placing in Gregory's office every Thursday for the past 6 weeks. She'd hoped she'd never need it, hoped that staying invisible would be enough. But Gregory Anderson had threatened her daughter, and Victoria Sterling had tried to destroy her life. Maya plugged the recorder into her laptop and opened the audio files. Gregory's voice. "The Malibu property transfers next week." Victoria's laugh. "Your wife has no idea." Gregory again. "If the maid becomes a problem, we make her the problem." Maya saved the files to 3 separate drives. Then she texted Caroline. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Starbucks on University Avenue. Come alone." Caroline arrived at her own study the next morning to find Gregory, Maya, and the head household manager already seated. She'd called this meeting to resolve the theft issue professionally. Maya had asked permission to speak first. "Go ahead," Caroline said. Maya stood, smoothed her uniform, then turned to face Gregory Anderson directly, and switched to Mandarin. Her voice was calm, precise, formal, the high-registered dialect of diplomatic chambers and legal proceedings. "On October 3rd at 2:15 p.m. in the master bedroom, you said to Miss Sterling in Mandarin, 'Caroline's Paris flight leaves Thursday at 6 p.m. We'll have 4 days alone.' Miss Sterling responded, 'Have you transferred the Malibu property to Sterling Holdings yet?' You answered, 'My attorney is finalizing it.'" Gregory's face drained of color. Maya continued, her Mandarin flawless, relentless. "On September 12th in the garden, you told Miss Sterling, 'Once the divorce is finalized, we can liquidate the joint accounts. Caroline will get the minimum the prenup allows.'" Caroline didn't understand the words, but she understood her husband's expression, pure terror. Maya's voice never wavered. "On October 28th yesterday in your office, you told Miss Sterling in Mandarin, 'Put the jewelry in her locker. Make it look like she's been stealing for months. Then we fire her and she can't testify about anything she's overheard.'" Silence. Maya switched to English, now addressing Caroline. "Mrs. Anderson, your husband has been conducting an affair with Victoria Sterling for 8 months. They've been discussing it freely in Mandarin, assuming I couldn't understand. He's been transferring marital assets to her company. Yesterday, they plotted to frame me for theft so I couldn't reveal what I know." She placed a small digital recorder on the desk. "I also recorded their conversations, but I wanted you to hear it from me first, in his own words, in his own language. The recording is supporting evidence. My testimony stands alone." Caroline looked at Gregory. "Is this true?" Gregory opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came. "Play it," Caroline said, her voice like ice. Maya pressed play. Gregory's voice filled the room, speaking Mandarin, planning betrayal, mocking his wife, Victoria's laughter, their affair, their schemes, their contempt, all of it, undeniable. Caroline listened to 30 seconds, then held up her hand. "Stop." She looked at her husband. "Get out of my house." "How long have you understood Mandarin?" Caroline asked Maya after Gregory had left, his footsteps echoing through the mansion one final time. Maya sat down slowly, the weight of 3 years finally lifting. "My entire life," she said. "My father was a UN interpreter. Chinese Embassy, Geneva, New York. He spoke 6 languages. Mandarin was our language at home." Caroline leaned forward. "Georgetown?" "Linguistics degree. Class of 2009. Summa cum laude." Maya's voice stayed steady, but something in it cracked around the edges. "I was supposed to work in international relations. State Department. Maybe follow my father's path. What happened? My husband died in a car accident when our daughter was 2. Medical bills, funeral costs, student loans. I was 26 years old and drowning in debt with a toddler. Maya looked at her hands, the same hands that had scrubbed floors and polished marble for 3 years. Housekeeping paid cash. No one asked about my degree, they just saw a black woman who needed work, Caroline finished quietly. Yes. Why didn't you ever say anything about your education, your skills? Because invisible people survive longer than visible ones. My daughter needed tuition. I needed employment. Pride doesn't pay bills. Maya met Caroline's eyes. And because I learned that powerful people tell their secrets when they think no one's listening. Your husband's arrogance gave me something pride never could. What's that? Leverage. Caroline sat back. My husband kicked your cleaning bucket, called you ignorant, framed you for theft, and you stayed calm enough to gather evidence for months. Years, ma'am. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Because timing matters. If I'd exposed the affair 6 months ago, you might not have believed me. But now, Maya gestured toward the recorder. Now you've seen the jewelry frame-up. You've suspected. You've felt the lies. Now you're ready to hear the truth. Caroline studied this woman she'd never really seen. You're remarkable, she said. I'm strategic, Maya corrected. There's a difference. Caroline picked up the digital recorder. How much is on here? 6 weeks of Thursday afternoon conversations, plus 3 phone calls I recorded when Mr. Anderson left his office door open. Is it legal? California is a 2-party consent state. I'm aware, which is why I'm giving it to you as a gift, not as evidence in court. What you do with it is your choice. My verbal testimony of what I heard stands alone. Caroline pressed play. Gregory's voice emerged. The prenup gives her the Tahoe house and $2 million. Everything else stays with me. Once we're divorced, we can be public about us. Victoria. And if she fights? Gregory. She won't. She's too proper. Too embarrassed. She'll take the settlement and disappear quietly. Caroline stopped the recording. Her hands were shaking. I want copies, she said. Everything. Maya handed her 3 USB drives. Already prepared, ma'am. Caroline Anderson made 4 phone calls in the next 30 minutes. First, her attorney. Emergency meeting, today. Bring the prenup file and divorce options. Second, her bank. Freeze all joint accounts. Require dual authorization on any transfers over $10,000. Third, her sister. I'm finally doing it. Yes. Today. Fourth, Maya. Don't leave. I need you here. By evening, the locks had been changed. Gregory's belongings were packed by a service Caroline hired specifically for the purpose. His access to the house, the accounts, the life they'd built, severed with the efficiency of old money meeting new rage. Caroline sat across from Maya in the study where just hours before the truth had detonated. I'm not firing you, Caroline said. I'm promoting you, again. Maya blinked. Ma'am, estate manager. Full authority over property, staff, vendors, household finances. $65,000 a year plus housing allowance. You'll report directly to me. Mrs. Anderson, you saved my financial life today. My attorney says that without your evidence, Gregory could have hidden assets for months. The recordings prove intent to defraud. That changes everything about the divorce settlement. Caroline's voice softened. More than that, you saved my dignity. You could have let me stay blind, could have stayed invisible. Instead, you risked your job, your safety, your daughter's future to tell me the truth. That's not strategy, Maya. That's courage. Maya's eyes burned. She blinked hard. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Stay. Help me rebuild this house into something that isn't built on lies. Maya thought about Jasmine's tuition, about the years of silence and invisibility, about the moment she'd heard Gregory threaten her daughter and decided enough was enough. Yes, she said, I'll stay. Caroline smiled, genuinely for the first time in years. Good, because we have a lot of work to do, starting with calling the police about Victoria Sterling and that bracelet frame-up. Maya smiled back. I'll make the call. Victoria Sterling arrived at the Anderson mansion Thursday afternoon, the usual time, with her usual key. The key didn't work. She rang the doorbell. Maya answered. Miss Sterling, Maya said pleasantly, you're no longer welcome here. Victoria's smile was sharp. Where's Gregory? Mr. Anderson no longer resides at this address. Mrs. Anderson has filed for divorce. Her attorney has also filed a police report regarding your tennis bracelet and the attempted frame-up. Victoria's face went white. That's absurd. You can't prove. Actually, I can in Mandarin. Maya smiled. Would you like me to recite your conversation from October 28th? The one where you and Mr. Anderson discussed planting evidence in my locker? Victoria took a step back. Maya pulled the expensive bracelet from her pocket, the one Gregory had planted. You'll want this back. Consider it a parting gift. She held it out. Victoria snatched it, her hand shaking. You're just a maid, she hissed. I'm Georgetown educated, fluent in 3 languages, and currently the estate manager of a property you'll never enter again. Maya's voice stayed calm. Have a nice day, Miss Sterling. She closed the door. Outside, Victoria stood on the steps, clutching her bracelet, realizing she'd just lost everything. Inside, Maya allowed herself one small, victorious smile. Gregory Anderson's fall was efficient and public. Caroline's attorney leaked carefully curated details to the press: affair, asset hiding, attempted fraud. Tech blogs picked up the story. Business partners at Pinnacle Ventures called emergency board meetings. Stanford asked him to step down from the alumni board. His company's stock dropped 8% in 2 days. Investors questioned his judgment. If he'd been this careless in his personal life, what else had he missed? Maya watched from the study window as Gregory returned one final time to collect his remaining belongings, supervised by Caroline's attorney and a security guard. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. His silver Mercedes, once a symbol of power, pulled out of the driveway and disappeared down the tree-lined street. Maya thought about the moment he'd kicked her cleaning bucket, called her worthless, threatened her daughter. Thought about him speaking Mandarin, so confident in his power, so certain of his invisibility cloak. She didn't feel satisfaction, exactly, just a quiet sense of balance restored. Powerful people always made the same mistake. They thought they were invincible. They forgot that every empire needs invisible people to function, and invisible people see everything. Gregory Anderson had learned that lesson at a cost of $4 billion. Maya turned away from the window and got back to work. 6 months later, the Anderson mansion felt different. Caroline had transformed it into headquarters for the Henderson Foundation, named for Maya's father, the UN interpreter who'd taught his daughter that language was power. The Foundation's mission, supporting invisible workers, housekeepers, janitors, service staff, with job training, language classes, educational grants. Maya ran operations. Her daughter Jasmine came home for winter break and found her mother behind a desk instead of a mop, wearing professional clothes instead of a uniform, speaking at Foundation events about dignity and recognition. "You did it," Jasmine said, hugging her. "You really did it." "We did it," Maya corrected. "Everything I survived was for you." Caroline joined the Foundation full-time after her divorce finalized. She and Maya became unlikely partners, old money and new wisdom building something that mattered. The staff, the other housekeepers, the groundskeeper, the cook, all received raises, benefits, respect. The mansion was warmer now. People laughed. No one was invisible. Gregory Anderson's name appeared occasionally in business journals, always followed by "decline to comment." Victoria Sterling's consulting company quietly dissolved, and Maya Henderson, Georgetown graduate, diplomat's daughter, finally became visible on her own terms. A young woman arrived at the Foundation one Tuesday morning, an immigrant from Honduras who spoke 4 languages fluently but worked as a cafeteria server because her credentials weren't recognized in the U.S. Maya interviewed her personally. "I see you," Maya said in Spanish, then English, watching the woman's eyes widen. "Your languages, your education, your potential. I see all of it." The woman's voice shook. "No one else does. Because you're wearing the wrong uniform. They see the job, not the person." Maya leaned forward. "But here's what I learned. You decide when people get to see the real you. You choose the moment. You pick the time. Being invisible isn't weakness. It's strategy. Until you're ready to be seen. And when that moment comes, make sure you have evidence." The woman smiled. "You sound like you have a story." "I do," Maya said. "And it started with someone underestimating me." Maya's daughter visited that weekend, watching her mother mentor the young woman in 4 languages, building opportunities from invisibility. "Mom," Jasmine asked, "were you really invisible all those years?" Maya smiled. "I was never invisible, honey. I was strategic." She looked at her daughter. "Now ask yourself, who in your life are you not seeing, and what are you missing because of it?" That question changed everything.